was the air conditioning.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the very next episode of The Remedy with Tova Sido and
Janice Gaunt and
Tom Bridwell.
I thought maybe you'd gone silent.
No, I just was daydreaming about something. Are y'all's headphones okay down there?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
yeah, they're amazing.
I think I froze like a deer in headlights because I was like, oh my God, I forgot to check the headphones.
I've never daydreamed in my life about a headphone,
Me neither.
but I've never had your job, Tom.
Well, there's some daydreaming involved.
How's everybody today?
Really good. How
Great.
about you?
Swell.
Good.
I got a facial this morning.
Well, isn't that nice?
Oh, on a Monday. Everybody should get a facial on a Monday
Where
morning.
did you go?
Riviera.
Oh, yeah.
I love that place.
I like it too. They do. I love getting a massage there.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
I never got a massage
I
there.
do.
I've
Yeah.
only had a facial, and there's a guy named James there that is a life-changing esthetician.
Lovely.
I know.
Yeah.
He should be our sponsor today.
He should.
James,
You
get
got
busy.
plugged. That'll
busy,
be
James.
$200, James.
Speaking of, if you would like to be the next sponsor on The Remedy, we would love and appreciate it, whether it's a corporate sponsorship or a personal sponsorship. We would really appreciate it. We make it super easy. You can Zelle. I just learned how to say that word from Tom. Or you can Venmo us at Tova Sido. Every episode is about $200, and we would really appreciate it. So I know a ton of listeners who just haven't had that incredible opportunity. So we hope you take advantage of it. Okay. I'm excited about this topic today.
Well,
Although I
good.
have to say, reading this list made me a little depressed for people who are in
Who are
toxic.
experiencing this?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a cut from Janice's amazing book, Prince Charming is Either Dead or in Rehab. If you have not picked up a copy, Janice did not ask me to do this. I'm doing this out of I love her book, and I'm
Thanks, Tova.
I'm engaged, and so it's kind of geared towards dating.
Yes.
And I would say, if you are interested in being in a relationship, this is a must read.
Well, thank you,
Yeah,
Tova.
it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody told me that they were listening to your book online.
Oh, really?
What? Yeah.
Who was it?
A girl that came to my house last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Oh,
she was
how
like, "I've
funny.
learned so much from Janice." But and so she had it. Oh, I didn't know she was listening to it. And she goes, I said, "Where are you in the book?" And so she goes, "I don't know." And so she lifted it, and then she pushed play, and I hear your voice. I'm like, "Are you doing the book on audio?" And she was like, "Yeah, I love her voice."
Oh, that is hilarious.
I hadn't listened to it, but
I
read it.
don't believe anybody has ever said, I love your voice.
People say that all the time to me.
Well, it's because I'm from Lubbock.
Yeah,
I
they-
learned it from my uncles and aunts.
They really don't tell you that, Jess? I feel like so many people tell me that. This is the
don't
same
know.
girl that saw you on the escalator in Neiman Marcus.
Oh, you're kidding.
And she was like, "Are you Janice?" And she said she was going up and you were going down, or one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, she talked about you on the podcast.
Yeah, that was so funny.
She was like, "I think I scared her."
Good thing I didn't fall down the escalator.
Yeah, no, we need you, Janice. Don't
Well,
do that.
thank you for listening to my book on tape. I was a nervous wreck to make it. Remember, Tom, I was like, oh my gosh, I just cannot imagine anybody
You-
wanting to listen to me
you
talk.
crushed.
You did. You did. I mean, from the two, I read the book. I don't like books on audio. Do you? Do you listen to books?
I do listen to some audio books.
Do you, Tom?
I'm probably gonna start because I've got a couple long road trips coming, but I never ever think to do it. I've always wanted to, and I think I would like it, but I always just immediately go to music.
I think if you're on a road trip, I think that would be a great thing to do, to listen to a novel.
Yes.
That'd keep you so entertained.
That's kind of, keep you awake.
That's
and
the
alert.
only time I've done it. It was years ago when I drove to Colorado. I listened to the Da Vinci Code
Oh, yeah?
forever ago.
That was a great movie.
Yes, it was.
It was a good book.
Yeah.
I don't even think I saw the movie.
Yeah, I've seen it, I think.
Wow.
I think it was
good.
a movie.
It was good. Who was that author? Tom's going to know.
Dan.
No.
Dan something? I don't know. I'll look it up.
Yeah. It was that one who did this. He did the one about with Tom Cruise did the movie, and it was I'm butchering all this. We don't need to talk about this. Let's go back to our topic. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so this is
Dan Brown.
Oh, you were right.
Good job,
It
Tom.
did not
Pulled
feel.
that first name right out of a hat.
Wow, I
Did you Google that?
I did not feel like his name was Dan.
I promise I did not Google the Dan part. Just the
Well,
Brown
that's
part.
good.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, so this is coming straight from Janice's book. Today we are talking about how to identify a toxic relationship,
Yes. Yeah.
which a lot of people are in.
They are, and they don't realize it because in the beginning phase of a relationship, people are so starry-eyed
Fake,
and
fake.
and fake. And the person, if somebody's kind of desperate for a relationship, then a lot of times they will put up with things that really are not healthy. And actually, a toxic relationship is one that is very difficult to be in, and it's not going to usually stop on its own because a lot of these
Seems like this would take a lot of work.
a lot of work because a lot of it is habitual and what people learned when they were growing up and maybe had parents that were toxic with one another or actually, verbally abusive to their children or things like that. So I think it's really, really important because I think that in the beginning phase of a relationship, we really do fantasize about it.
Sure.
And
Especially if there's a chemistry or physical attraction.
for sure.
Yeah.
And
you can get
and
real
then,
cloudy.
And then you start thinking, oh, well, they, I didn't do this, or they'd blame it on themselves, or they would think, well, it'll change with time, or if,
Sure.
So I do think it's really important because even though some of these can be fixed, a lot of times people don't realize it themselves that they are being toxic.
Yeah. Something that you wrote in here reminded me of that. I'll come back to it when we get to that number. I have a question before we start because I think this might be helpful to the listener. You wrote 22, a list of 22 that we're going to go through. Things that could help you identify whether or not you're in a toxic relationship. My two questions are this. One, in order to be in a toxic relationship, do both parties have to contribute? Do both parties have to be toxic?
Well,
does toxic attract toxic?
Not necessarily, but I think what happens sometimes are people who are typically more women that are desperate for a relationship, or maybe they are getting to a certain age and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get married and all of that. So I think that they may tend to tolerate the toxicity but I don't think that some people are they just take it. So they participate in the toxic behaviors by being compliant. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then my other question before we start the list is, do you have to do all of these things? Like, what if somebody who's listening to this is like, well, I don't do that. Well, I don't do that. I don't do that. But they do like 4 out of the 22.
Yeah.
How do you?
That's toxic.
Okay,
I think
that's
if
good
it's
to know.
toxic at all, then what you're going to want to do is insist that the behavior change or you get out.
Wow.
Because it doesn't have to be more than one. And there will be.
I think that's an important thing to point out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fix
and
it.
people will make excuses.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
oh, well,
I've
they
done
were
that.
just tired or whatever. And so it's not like you need to have half of these things in order for it to be considered toxic.
If you have one, you are.
Then you want to look at it and you want to, really look at how does it feel? Because when you're in a relationship with someone who's toxic, it is a lot of times people will feel it in their body. And I wrote this in the book. If your gut tends to knot at the onset of some behaviors, I suggest that you drive the behavior by a friend or therapist to get their reaction. So because we will tend to tolerate things individually, but if we drive it by somebody and they're like, "Are you kidding?"
Right.
That's not okay.
Right.
So
And listen
yes,
to that.
Yes.
I think that this just as, 10 times better than I do. I don't even think sometimes I don't think people are totally honest with their family or open. And I don't think
Exactly.
they have to be. Friends, even therapists or counselors. Like, I think that there's elements of our lives and our relationships that because we're not proud of them, we hide it. And I think that's dangerous.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to a therapist or seek out counseling,
Yeah.
for God's sakes, be honest.
Exactly.
Or you're wasting your time and your money.
And, I know that this has happened with you too, Tova, that people have come in and then they are talking about their relationship and they tell you something and my gut will kind of pinch a little bit. And then if I bring it up, then a lot of them will say, well, I probably made him do that. And he must have been really tired that night or whatever. So
He had a stressful day at work.
exactly.
The kids were really on her nerves that day.
Yeah, and there are people are human.
Yeah.
And so some people, if they have had a stressful day at work, they come home and they might snap at their partner. And I don't necessarily think that is reason to get out of the relationship, but I definitely think it's something that you would want to
address.
And if you find yourself tolerating things, then that is a big clue, because if somebody is being verbally abusive, let's say, it's not good.
No.
And it's not good for kids to see either. So anyway, we'll go through these, and some of them are pretty benign, or some people would think they're pretty benign. But I do think that if your gut pinches, it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
And then you can drive that by somebody and say, "Hey, my husband, called me a bitch last night. Do you think that's all right?"
No.
Yeah, that's a big no. Yeah.
That's a hard pass for me.
Yeah, no kidding. Me too.
Okay, so there's 22 of them. We're going to do the first 11 in this episode, and then we're going to save the last 11 for next week.
Okay, sounds
good?
great. Yeah.
All right, why don't you start us off?
Okay. One thing that I wrote about this was I said it can be really difficult to identify this at the beginning of a relationship. You may tend to minimize certain behaviors because you so desperately want the relationship to work. Even though seeing one or two of these does not necessarily mean that this relationship is doomed to be toxic, it is worth keeping it in mind. If your gut tends to knot at the onset of some behaviors, I suggest that you drive the behavior by a friend or therapist to get their reaction.
I love that I think that if your gut, that description, is such a good one because that's happened. I mean, it's probably happened to, if you've lived long enough, it's probably happened to you.
Absolutely.
And we knew better in our gut.
Our gut told us, warning, warning, warning.
Didn't
run,
listen to
run.
our gut.
Yeah.
And don't you think, you already said it in so many words, but don't you think that people have scarcity, that they just believe that this is as good as it's going to get?
Yeah.
If I break up or if I end this relationship, I won't get, there's no way that what if I don't find anybody else?
Yeah.
What if you do?
Yeah.
What if
and
you
there
find
are a
somebody
lot
better?
of people out there.
I remember asking you
Yeah.
that question. You're like, Tova, there are a lot of really good looking, single, happy, healthy men.
Yeah,
And
it's
I was
true.
like, really? Because when you're not in one and you want to be in that kind of relationship, it's hard to see it,
It is.
but
it is.
But scarcity is a lie.
It is. That's right. I like that. Wish I wrote that there. I wish I had written that.
All right. You can do it in your third, fourth, fifth
Oh,
book.
no, there's not going to be one. Okay, so number 1, your boyfriend is critical of who you are, finds fault about what you do, and he wants you to change. I mean to tell you what, that is terrible. If somebody is trying to recreate you or find faults about what you're doing and tries to get you to change, that's ridiculous.
Okay. Devil's advocate.
Okay.
What if my boyfriend is vaping all the time, that new strand of whatever it's called, Delta 8. I have no idea what it does, but it's not that good for you. I think it's like pot. Like what if I want my boyfriend to change that?
Well, I think you could
Where do you draw the line?
Well, I think you could talk about that. I mean, I think that if first of all, I don't want to date somebody that's going to be vaping something that's going to kind of,
Alter behavior.
their personality or their behavior.
Me too.
And I think that you can I think that if somebody was, doing that and you really liked them, but maybe you bring it up and say, so have you ever thought about not doing that? It's not like you're never going to suggest something or ask somebody to do something differently. But I think that it would, if somebody is really kind of addicted to that, then, they may be extremely defensive about somebody requesting that they not do it. But I think that I think this is a little bit more about maybe just being, why would you do that? Or that's stupid. Or
When you clean the house, clean it like this. Why do you dress like that?
yeah.
Just critical of like benign things that are just you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
Like if
right.
Craig
They should
came
be
in.
smoking Delta 9 anyway. If you're going to smoke weed, you might as well smoke the stuff that actually gets you high.
Tom, stop.
I'm curious because that particular scenario that you just raised, Tova, sort of triggered me because I would definitely not be able to date. I would stop dating somebody if they asked me to do that.
Well, then that might be a value that you don't want to take on. So yeah, I understand that.
And I guess I'm trying to think of a scenario where it would kind of do the same to you. It would just be like this.
Like if Craig
that we're
was
done
getting
here.
wasted every night and passing out on the couch.
Yeah.
And drank himself to black out on a regular basis.
Now that's one that a drunk. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah,
Nobody
then
wants
that would be.
But
a lot of people put up with it. You'd be shocked, Tom.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's kind of that.
Like if somebody asked you, you can't do yoga anymore.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, good.
That's
do
like,
it anyway.
That doesn't align with my Christian values, Tova.
Yeah.
But I do think that
Good point.
if you were dating somebody and I think that I think you can be too extreme with this, that you're supposed to just put up with anything and everything without
that's why I
bring it
wanted
to
to bring it
somebody's
up.
attention. But you could say, I understand that you love drinking 4 drinks at night every night, and I just don't. I don't feel comfortable being in that situation all the time. Would you consider cutting back or
Just
making?
don't let me see it.
If you could hide that better.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, and then plus people are going to, whenever you're dating somebody, before you date, you start to form a list of deal breakers for you, so that there are certain things that you're just not going to put up with. It's not in your value system, and and that's all right.
Sure.
So you can, and I think you can make a request. I think criticizing somebody
That's a very different word.
it's different. Because criticisms, oh my gosh, I can't believe you come home every night and you have 4 drinks every night. That is just gross.
You're a drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being unkind.
Yeah.
Not addressing it in a healthy and productive way.
Yeah.
I think that's great clarification.
Yeah.
Craig and I are very different. And some of the ways that we are different are intriguing and exciting and amazing. And some of the ways that we are different, I can find very annoying about him, and he can find very annoying about me, I'm sure. And so, but it's not our differences that annoy me. He's not acting outside of my value system.
Yeah.
And so I can just be like, that's Craig. And he can be like, that's Tova. And that's annoying, but whatever.
Exactly.
I don't need to change every little thing that annoys me
Right.
about or for Craig.
Yep.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep, I
that's a
agree.
good one. You started out with that one with a bang. Good job, girl. Okay, number 2. How do you know you're in a toxic relationship? He or she frequently picks at you about your clothing, your hairstyle, or your makeup.
Yeah. That would
Goes on the same thing. Craig had an opinion about the way I dressed or wore my hair. That would really bother me. Or try to change those things about me. That would really bother me. He has never one time in 4.5 years ever been anything but sweet about my outfits, my clothes.
Yeah, Tom's never. I think he's
critical
scared of
one
me.
Does he know that you're 95 pounds dripping wet? And there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Okay, Tom, you want to take 3?
Sure. He criticizes your desire to be with friends. Maybe we'll say they.
Yeah, he or she, criticizes your desire to be with your friends.
Yeah. You know what? I can see that for some people, especially if it's a woman and the guy, her husband, wants to be out with his friends all the time.
Yeah, frequency
and
would be.
that would be have to be negotiated,
Yes.
maybe some.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that's fair.
And it depends on what kind of friends you're with, or
Sure. What kind of people that they are, what kind of influence they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. Like Craig, twice a year, he goes on these guys' trips with all his old friends. And they've been doing this they've been friends since grade school. And there's 9 of them. I love so much, and I celebrate so much that he does that. If I gave him a hard time or made him feel like crap because he did that and he was leaving me and what about me, and
It'd be terrible.
that'd be a deal. I have all my friends in California. If Craig was like, "You're not going," no,
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
Peace.
"Yeah, that Tom."
Exactly. I think that's right. I think that it's important. I'm like you, Tova. I love it when Tom goes with some of his high school friends on a trip every year, and I mean, I think it's healthy.
Oh, I do too.
I think friendships are really important.
And I want to go away, and I don't want to feel
Well, and I like the
bad.
fact that Tom has friends.
for sure.
You know, if he wanted to be home
sure.
all the time and then it would expect me to be home all the time, that wouldn't work for us. But yeah, I think that I've had clients who have talked about their husbands criticizing them being with their friends.
Well, that feels really controlling.
Yeah, well, it is.
I wonder if that comes from jealousy from them, like the hanging out with their actual female friends, or jealousy of maybe they will be out and there will be males around, and he's worried that she'll like find somebody else or get hit on.
I'm
or
sure
be
there's a
flirted with.
combination of all of that.
I think so too. And I think, you know, I saw a couple several years ago, and she was there, they were both there, and he was complaining about she and his wife and her friends going to a place and dancing with guys, and she just thought it was ridiculous that he was upset about that.
Probably 90% of the dudes in that discotheque or whatever are probably gay anyway. Not a threat.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't, you know, if Tom went to a concert, you know, and they were, and he was dancing at a concert with another woman, I wouldn't like that.
Oh, I would hate that.
Yeah.
If Craig did that.
Yeah.
That would be a no-go for me.
Yeah.
That would be an absolute no-go for me. I also think when you see something change in your relationship, like when Topher and I were first married, like we had all the same friends. We went to high school together. We went out with all the same people. But when our relationship started to change, he was going out with other guys. He was staying out later. He was coming home different. You know, like when there's a shift in the going out, I think that, and it's different than it used to be. I think for me, that would be a siren. Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Something's changed, you know, because our relationship foundation was rooted in this way, and now it's this way. And I've experienced that with a lot of couples that I've met with, like, you know, the mom's tired of being home with the kids, and so she's going out with the girlfriends a lot more, or vice versa. Or the guys doesn't want to stay home with 3 kids on Saturday, so he's golfing every weekend, and that's a no-go. So I think when there's a shift that doesn't feel good, that you feel in your gut, that's worth bringing up.
Yeah, and I wouldn't like it at all if Tom Tom goes to concerts a lot, and I don't want to go to all of them because he's got some very strange bands, and I don't know any of the music. So we went to an Elvis Costello concert the other night.
You got to go to that? Lucky.
We were on the front row.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
That's
yeah,
a
it's one of
great
Tom's
ticket.
favorite. He has some albums framed in his study, and they're
that's
on
really
the
cool.
desk. Yeah, he's got all of his old albums.
It's very cool.
And but if everybody had been dancing and I wasn't there, I mean, if he were dancing and he was dancing with women, I wouldn't like that.
I would hate it.
I want him to just dance by himself.
Of course.
Just snap his fingers.
And think of you while he's doing it. Man, I wish Janice was here.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that would be that would have to be negotiated for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. You want to tackle 4?
Yeah. You feel as if your boyfriend has more power in the relationship.
Or girlfriend.
But yes, that's exactly right. Or girlfriend. So I think that is really important because I think that it's an equal opportunity for each of you to have your own sense of self and sense of power in the relationship. It's not power over. And I think if one person has more power than the other, then that's a power over. And I would definitely
Address that.
would want that to be addressed.
I read a book years ago, and the author described that oftentimes in unhealthy relationships, there's a reacher and then there's a grabber.
Oh, yeah.
And if someone is consistently reaching and the other one gets to decide whether or not they're interested in grabbing, that power struggle is on. And the healthier your relationship is, the more mutual and or non-existent the reaching and the grabbing is. For me, that created, it was something I read years ago that I never forgot. It created a real visual for me, like I'm over you, reaching for you, I decide, and then that other person is constantly grabbing at me,
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty unhealthy dynamic.
Well, I think that has changed, because I think as women, we've come a long way, and
Sure. Thank God.
I can remember my mom asking my dad permission to go on a trip. And I can, or if she was going to buy clothes, the asking him if that was okay. And so I think that feels like a power shift.
Yeah.
Now, if I were going to use our joint, checking account and decide to buy a Chanel bag, then Tom probably would not be real thrilled about that. So that would be the sort of thing that I would do. If I'm going to buy a Chanel bag, I'm going to buy it with my money, because Tom's not a big fan of that.
Yeah. You have in the past, you've called this a drive-by. You don't ask Tom for permission. Is it okay if I go to Mexico and take my Spanish lessons? You want to go to Mexico, you want to take your Spanish lessons, you'd like to go this date. What you do is you drive that by.
Yes, I do. I don't ask if I can go. What I do is say, hey, Vicki and I've talked about going this week. Does that timing work okay with you? And he's always like, yeah, sure. So yeah. But if he were the one that was paying for it, then that might be different.
Sure.
Because,
of course.
He might say, well, I don't know. That's too, right now I just am not looking forward to paying that. So I think that's the advantage. If it's at all possible that people can have their own bank account, it helps. But when Kurt and I were married, I didn't have, I would ask Kurt for if it was okay for me to go shopping. I didn't work. I worked in the house, but I didn't have a paying job. And so, but I think that has come a long way too.
Heck yeah.
That was a long time ago, because women really did kind of ask for permission.
Let me tell you something. I'm watching an incredibly fascinating show on Netflix right now.
What is it?
It's called Arranged. Have y'all heard of this?
No.
Have you heard of it, Tom?
No, ma'am.
So yes, I believe in our neighborhood, zip codes, culture, religion. It is changing. There's been a shift, and women are gaining more power and momentum. However, so they profile, or they follow these three couples. One is an Indian couple. One is a very Southern religious couple, and another is a Jewish.
Is this a true?
True. It's
like a documentary.
Yeah, it's like they follow them, and it's just a series, but they follow the relationships. And in all three of these relationships, cultures, religions, relationships, the man is in charge, and the man does nothing. Like, he works, but he does nothing.
He doesn't ever empty the dishwasher.
He does nothing. Like this, and these kids, a lot of them, like this, the one that I'm watching, this series, the season that I'm on right now is series 2. The Jewish couple is like 19 years old, and he comes home from work and he sits on the couch and he's like, what time's dinner going to be ready? And then in the Indian family, he's like, what is this? This is terrible. I mean, it's like, how does this still exist?
I don't know.
I mean, it is fascinating to me. And all the women get an allowance and they have to work and do everything around the house. Anyway, it's called Arranged. And
that is so interesting.
Does it come with an instruction manual?
God, I mean, my jaw is just on the ground the entire time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would last 2.5 seconds in this situation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me too.
Whew, you would last 0.5. Okay.
Okay, number 5.
Yeah.
Tom, you want to do it?
Sure. He's controlling and jealous, needs you by his side, questions your whereabouts, and does not want you to be by yourself.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
weird.
It's funny, like all of these, if you have one of these, you probably have a lot of these.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
I
need
think
to
you're-
get out.
Yeah. And you need to get out is right.
you too.
The next one, you feel like you're losing your ability to practice self-care.
Yeah.
That's sad too.
I think that's really important too. That because if you're dating somebody and you feel like that you're used to practice self-care, and then now somebody, and I can see this happening in all age groups too.
Oh, for sure.
That they start having a problem with you doing like like if you're going to exercise in the morning and they're
like, hey, I want you home in the morning making breakfast.
yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Or, Tova, you're not going to get your facial today. I'm like, like hell I'm not.
But I think I do think that exists. And I think that, you and I and Tom, you and Maureen, I mean, the people that we hang out with are not... I think that maybe it's the age group where, as opposed to like college kids or even high school guys or girls when they're in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I just think that we've come a long way around this, but I do think this still exists.
Sure. I know it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely know it does. And, I think about the things that Craig does for self-care. And I feel like if I'm a loving partner, I would actually want him to do those things to take care of himself.
Yeah.
That's actually very important to me.
Yeah.
Okay, number 7.
Go ahead.
You have the desire and hope that your boyfriend or girlfriend will change.
Yeah, I think I'd leave that monkey. I think if you really have this big desire and hope that this boyfriend is going to change, no. I think that the chances of that happening are slim to none.
Yeah.
There may be a couple of things, and that boyfriend might be faking it for a while.
Yeah.
But I think that wanting, if there are little things that will get on your nerves with somebody you're dating or something, and you can talk about those things, but you have this deep desire and hope that this person is going to change. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go on down that cafeteria line of men. Leave that entree on the shelf.
Totally. Because you know what? There's somebody who out there who will meet your needs, and you won't have to feel like you need to change. And I mean, if Craig made me feel like I constantly needed to change,
you wouldn't be in that relationship.
Yeah, that would make me feel the same. The next thing, number 8, you are constantly feeling insecure.
Yes.
That's I think what happens.
Yeah.
Is if we feel like we're never good enough in a relationship, it's just a beat down, beat down, beat down, beat down.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want somebody that is making you feel insecure.
No, I want somebody who makes me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You want to take 9?
Sure. Your boyfriend never takes responsibility for his behavior. Yeah, and I can see this in men and women or boys and girls that are dating, because I think that the younger the guy is, the more they will, when they're trying to come into their own macho persona, that they just do what they want to do, as opposed to taking responsibility.
I think a man or a woman who can take responsibility for their behavior is one of the most attractive things that can happen. If I were to say something to Craig and he was like, gosh, I never thought about that way. Like, I can see why you wouldn't like that. Okay, I hear that.
Yeah.
And if somebody is always fighting the other person, it's like exhausting.
It is exhausting. Yeah.
Okay, you got 10, Tom?
Yes. He refuses to discuss an issue.
Yeah. No, that wouldn't work.
That would not work for me. I mean, if I wanted to talk about something and Craig just shut me down and said no, that'd be sad.
It would be sad.
Have you ever had a couple walk out, like somebody walk out?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because they don't want to talk about it? Uh-huh. It's getting too hot in the kitchen? Uh-huh. Under what circumstances have you observed that I mean, is there like a running theme? Not that they're fighting about the same thing, but what is happening when somebody just gets up and leaves and says, I'm not talking about this anymore?
Well, I think that they are getting hot under the collar. You know, I think they're being called out. And so they don't want to talk about it. So I had a couple, and I wrote about this in the book also. He had dated so many people. He had over 200 women in his phone, and their contact information that he had dated in the past. And I asked
Was
her,
he 70?
No, he was like probably 40. And he, and I told him, I said, well, she goes, he's got all of these old contacts in his phone. And I was like, well, so I looked at him and I said, so did you date these women? And he said, yes. I mean, I had dates with them. But I said, well, have you had sex with all of them? And he said, well, yeah, I've had sex with all of them, because I've taken the ones that I didn't have sex out. And I looked at her and I said, well, first of all, I looked at him and I said, okay, I'm not going to do any therapy with you guys. I expect you to delete every single one of those contacts while you're sitting here. And you know what he did?
Walked out?
I walked out.
I would
and then I told
never
him,
talk to that man again.
And then I told her, you need to go run for the hill.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
No.
Isn't that sick?
Yes.
I know.
I mean, that's a really sad, and a girl shouldn't be with a guy like that anyway.
No.
I mean, that has trouble written all over it.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, that's the refusing to discuss something. And you've probably had this experience too, where people are in your office and something comes up and one of them go, well, I'm just not going to talk about that. We've talked about that before, and I'm not going to talk about that again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's relatively common.
Yeah, that is relatively common. I think you're exactly right that people start to feel this way when they're culpable of something. The maddest anybody's ever been in my living room was a couple where the husband was an alcoholic and he drank and drank and drank, and nothing changes. It's the same conversation every week. He's ruining his marriage, his family, his children, his job. I mean, he's worthless, and all he does is drink, and he knows what it does to his kids. He knows what it does to his wife. He knows what it does to his friendships. And I'm just like, how many times are you gonna come here and pay, and we're gonna have the same conversation? And he was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with, he didn't like where it was going.
No.
He doesn't want to talk about it. I haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
Well, last but not least for this week, this is, I think, a really important one. Your friends and family express concern about the relationship.
I agree. If your friends and family are concerned, heed the message.
Because I have to say, I think it's really hard for somebody who loves you to tell you that they are witnessing something that
exactly
is like, I've had that conversation with a good friend or somebody in my family, and I was a wreck because that's a bold, but it was so egregious and obvious to me as an outsider that I felt like I had to say something. And that doesn't always work out because people don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to deal with it. But it takes some humble pie to listen. But I think your word heed is a really good one.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, that's it for this week. Next week, we're going to pick up on the last 11 of how to identify a toxic relationship. These are really good, Janice.
Good.
Great job. Y'all have a great week.
Thank you for listening.